The day my family called me the dumb child, I was sitting at the end of our dining table while my older brother explained a business deal he had barely understood. Everyone laughed when my mother said I should stay out of serious conversations because I was not good with numbers. I smiled, lowered my eyes, and let them believe it. What they did not know was that inside my bag was a contract worth $2 million, and the signature on the final page belonged to me. I had spent 3 years building something they never bothered to notice. My name is Claire Bennett, and in my family, intelligence had always been measured by confidence, expensive clothes, and the ability to speak loudly. My brother Evan had all three. He graduated from college with average grades, but somehow convinced everyone he was destined to run a company. My younger sister Melissa was the family favorite because she knew exactly how to make my parents feel proud. Then there was me. I was quiet, cautious, and more interested in solving problems than announcing that I had solved them. Somehow, that made me the dumb one. I learned early that defending myself only made things worse. When I received the highest score in my accounting class during high school, my father said I had probably studied from the answer key. When I won a regional business competition, my mother called it beginner luck. When I turned down a comfortable office job to work independently, Evan laughed and told everyone I was too scared to compete in the real world. I never corrected them. Instead, I started keeping records, learning quietly, and building skills that did not need applause. I became very good at understanding complicated financial systems. After college, I took a position with a small logistics company called Harbor Lane Supply. My official job was operations analyst, but the title did not describe what I actually did. I studied shipping delays, supplier costs, warehouse waste, contract structures, and customer complaints. Within 18 months, I discovered a pattern that had been costing the company hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. I built a new forecasting system that reduced unnecessary inventory and predicted delivery problems before they happened. My manager asked who had created it. When I said I had, he stared at me like he had discovered something valuable. That conversation changed the direction of my life. My manager, Daniel Reed, encouraged me to turn my system into a consulting service. I spent nights refining the software and weekends speaking with small manufacturers. I made mistakes, lost clients, and once spent 6 months working for almost nothing. But I kept improving. Eventually, a regional distributor asked me to redesign its entire supply planning process. The results were so strong that the company introduced me to a national manufacturer. That introduction eventually led to a meeting with a much larger corporation called North Star Industrial Group. I walked into that meeting alone. The executives at North Star did not care about my family history, my grades, or whether I sounded impressive. They cared about one question. Could my system save them money without disrupting their operations? I showed them the numbers, explained the risks, demonstrated the process, and answered every question they asked. Their chief operating officer challenged several assumptions, but I had prepared for each one. After 3 meetings and months of testing, North Star offered my company a $2 million contract. I read the document twice before signing it. Then I sat alone in my apartment and cried. The contract was not simply money. It was proof that the years I spent being underestimated had not been wasted. I'd created a legitimate business, hired 2 employees, and built relationships with clients who trusted my judgment. Yet I still had not told my family. I knew exactly what would happen. My mother would ask how much I earned. Evan would ask how he could get involved. Melissa would say she had always believed in me. My father would probably give me advice about managing money, despite having never asked how I built the company. So I kept quiet. Then came my parents' anniversary dinner. My mother invited everyone to their house, and the evening began pleasantly enough. Evan talked about a car he wanted to buy. Melissa discussed a vacation she was planning. My father complained about rising business costs. I mostly listened while eating the pasta my mother had prepared. Then Evan mentioned that he was considering starting a small consulting company. He asked me what I thought. Before I could answer, my mother laughed and said, "Claire should not give business advice." Remember, she was always the dumb child in school. Everyone laughed. I felt something inside me finally go still. I looked around that table and realized I was no longer hurt by the insult. I was tired of accepting the role they had assigned me. For years, I had treated their opinions like facts because they were my family. That night, I understood something different. Their confidence in their judgment did not make their judgment accurate. My silence had allowed them to remain comfortable. I placed my fork down and calmly asked Evan what kind of consulting company he wanted to start. He explained his idea for several minutes, and I asked 3 questions that exposed major problems in his plan. My father frowned and told me not to turn dinner into a business lecture. Evan said I was trying to make him look stupid. I told him that was not my intention. I simply wanted him to understand the risks before spending money. My mother shook her head and said this was exactly why I was difficult. She said I had become arrogant since getting a little office job. I almost laughed. I had not told them I owned the company they were dismissing. I had not told them I had employees. I had not told them about North Star. I still stayed silent. 3 days later, everything changed because my contract became public inside my industry. North Star released a business announcement naming my company as its new strategic supply partner. The announcement included the contract value, $2 million. My phone began filling with messages from people I had not heard from in years. Then my mother called. I answered after the 4th attempt. Her first words were not congratulations. She asked if the $2 million was real. I said yes. There was silence. Then she asked why I had not told the family. I looked at the contract on my desk and answered honestly. Because every time I told you something good, you found a way to make it smaller. My mother became emotional and said she had only teased me because she wanted me to become stronger. I told her that calling someone stupid does not make them stronger. It teaches them to hide. She insisted that she had always supported me. I reminded her about the scholarship she called unnecessary, the competition she dismissed, and the business idea she told me was a fantasy. She became quiet. Then she asked whether I could help Evan with his company. That question hurt more than the insult at dinner because it showed that nothing had really changed. The next morning, Evan arrived at my office without an appointment. He looked uncomfortable standing behind the reception desk because the person he had always considered incapable now had a professional office with employees waiting for instructions. He asked to speak privately. I agreed. He sat across from me and said he had been jealous for years. He admitted that everyone praised him while I quietly achieved things he could not. He said pretending I was stupid had become easier than admitting he was afraid I might eventually succeed. For the first time, I believed him. His honesty mattered, even though it did not erase the damage. He asked if I would invest in his consulting idea. I told him no. His face fell immediately. I explained that I was willing to review his business plan once, but I would not finance something simply because we were related. If his idea had potential, he could prove it like everyone else. Evan nodded slowly. He expected money because that was how our family worked. I offered something different. Accountability. He left with a list of questions and a deadline. It was the first time I had ever treated him like an adult. Instead of a brother I needed to impress, my father reacted very differently. He called the contract a lucky break and warned me that large corporations could destroy small businesses. I told him he was right about the risk, which seemed to surprise him. Then I explained that I had already hired an attorney, created cash reserves, separated operating funds, and negotiated milestone payments. He became quiet as I described the safeguards. Finally, he asked who had taught me all of that. I said I had learned it myself. He looked away. I could almost see the old version of me disappearing from his mind and something more complicated taking its place. My sister Melissa did not apologize. Instead, she sent me a long message saying she was proud of me and wanted us to become closer. She also asked if I could recommend her for a position at North Star. I read the message twice. Melissa had never shown interest in my work before the contract appeared. I told her I could not recommend someone I had never worked with professionally. She accused me of holding a grudge. I told her there was a difference between holding a grudge and maintaining a boundary. She stopped responding. I felt strangely peaceful afterward. The biggest surprise came from my mother a month later. She showed up at my office carrying an old cardboard box. Inside were photographs, school certificates, competition medals, and letters I had completely forgotten about. She had kept everything. She placed the box on my desk and admitted that she had known I was capable for years. She said she had compared me to Evan because she was afraid that if I became independent, I would not need the family anymore. Hearing that explanation did not excuse what she had done, but it finally explained why her criticism had always felt so personal. I asked her why she never told me she was proud. She cried and said she thought praise would make me arrogant. I told her the opposite had happened. Her constant criticism had made me question every achievement I earned. I spent years thinking success had to be hidden until someone else confirmed it was real. My mother reached across the desk and held my hand. It was not a perfect reconciliation. There was no magical apology that erased everything. But for the first time, she was listening instead of defending herself. That mattered more than a dramatic speech ever could. The North Star contract became the foundation of something much larger. Over the next year, my company expanded carefully. We hired people based on skill rather than connections. I refused to build the kind of workplace where anyone was made to feel small just so someone else could feel important. Daniel remained my mentor and eventually became a partner. Evan eventually launched his own company, but he did it without my money. He worked hard, made mistakes, and slowly earned clients. Our relationship became cautious, but healthier because neither of us pretended the past had not happened. One afternoon, almost 2 years after that anniversary dinner, I received an invitation to speak at a business conference. The topic was building successful companies after being underestimated. I almost declined because I did not want my family history turned into entertainment. Then I remembered the girl I had been, sitting quietly at that dining table and believing every cruel word because the people saying it were supposed to know her best. I accepted the invitation. On stage, I did not talk about revenge. I talked about discipline, preparation, failure, and the danger of letting other people's opinions become your identity. After the presentation, a young woman approached me. She told me her family constantly called her incapable and laughed whenever she discussed her career goals. She said she had started believing them. I told her something I wish someone had told me years earlier. Being underestimated can hurt, but believing the estimate is where the real damage begins. You do not have to prove your worth through revenge. Build quietly if you need to. Learn relentlessly. Protect your peace. Then let your results speak when you are ready. She smiled through tears, and I realized my story had become useful in a way I never expected. That evening, I returned home and opened the original North Star contract. The $2 million figure was still printed on the page, but it no longer impressed me the way it once had. The real victory was not the money. It was the woman I had become before the money arrived. I had learned to trust my judgment without needing permission. I had learned that family could love you and still misunderstand you. I had learned that forgiveness did not require surrendering boundaries. Most importantly, I had stopped calling myself dumb simply because other people had repeated it for years. I still attend some family gatherings. Things are different now. My father asks about my company without pretending to understand everything. My mother tells people she is proud of me, sometimes too proudly, as if she is trying to make up for lost years. Melissa and I remain distant, but there is less hostility between us. Evan and I occasionally exchange business advice, and neither of us pretends we have forgotten where we started. The family joke about the dumb child disappeared completely. Nobody announced its death. It simply stopped being funny once I stopped believing it. Sometimes people think success is the best revenge. I do not believe that anymore. Revenge keeps you emotionally tied to the people who hurt you. Success can do that too if you build your life only to prove them wrong. What freed me was different. I built a life that made sense to me, even when nobody applauded. The $2 million contract did not make me intelligent. It did not make me worthy. It simply gave visible proof to something I had finally learned to believe about myself. I was never the dumb child. I was the quiet one they never took time to understand. If you have ever been underestimated by your family, your friends, or someone who decided your future before you had a chance to build it, Remember that their opinion is not a verdict. You do not need to become successful just to make them regret doubting you. Become successful because your life belongs to you. And if you enjoyed my story, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. If this story connected with you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more emotional stories about family, betrayal, courage, and unexpected victories.